So good morning and welcome back to The Weight Escape. I have Dr. Paul Jenkins on this morning. And I mean, he kind of does it all, but he's a clinical psychologist, sort of specializing in positivity, not only the science, but the practice of positivity. We'll keep this really quick, but you're a keynote speaker, an author, a trainer, you run a podcast, which we'll have an attachment to, and YouTube channel. And trust me, some of his videos on his YouTube channel are mind-blowing, like mind-blowing. I've had to really listen to a couple of them. But I really wanted to have you on today to kind of get that positive look on things. And we were talking about waiting and weight and what all of these things mean. So I'd love to just jump in and like have this conversation because I think it's going to be amazing.
Well, I'm excited to talk to you today, Jen. We've had a little bit of correspondence prior to this and just discussing how, yes, we've got this pandemic going on. We've got the holidays on us. There's all kinds of things happening. But, you know, it's interesting to me as a positivity psychologist. I've had a lot of people reaching out to me over the past year. Dr. Paul, how do we stay positive in such difficult circumstances? Now, without diminishing the real pain and the challenges and the difficulties that people are experiencing right now, I want to point something out right up front. And that is that we're calling it difficult circumstances. Really? Compared to what? And my job is to illuminate the obvious, okay? Which is cool. I get paid to tell people things they already know. And you're a coach, you know what I'm talking about. But there are many things that are completely obvious, but totally unnoticed until they're called to your attention. Okay, so consider the feeling of your shirt, for example. Can you feel it?
Well, now that I'm thinking about it.
Now you can.
Yeah, now.
But before I called it to your attention, you were oblivious to it. You weren't tuned into it. You didn't notice it. You noticed right when you put it on. Or the fact that we're speaking English. Did you notice?
No.
It's obvious.
Totally.
But completely unnoticed. Do you see what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And our brain, our mind, does this to us all the time. There are processes going on in our own mind that are completely obvious. You'll see them exactly as they are as soon as I call them to your attention, but you don't notice them until they're called to your attention. So I want you to notice that we call our circumstances difficult or that these are hard times. Just notice that. And it's obvious now that I call it to your attention. Oh yeah, I did call it that. But how do we judge things? I had the amazing opportunity, Jen, a couple of years ago to hear Immaculée Ilibagiza give a keynote address in Washington, D.C. Now, you might not know her name, and if you can't spell it, it's hard to look her up. Immaculée wrote a book called Left to Tell.
Okay.
She survived the Holocaust, the genocide in Rwanda. And as a Tutsi, her entire tribe was being exterminated by the Hutus. A Hutu pastor took compassion on her and hid her in an unused bathroom in his home. It was a little 3-foot by 4-foot bathroom. She stayed in there for 90 days with 7 other women. Jen, I don't know how 2 women share a big bathroom. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Hard times?
Yeah.
Compared to what? And compared to a genocide where your people are being destroyed. I mean, which one do you want? A global pandemic or a genocide? I mean, you wouldn't want to sign up for either.
No.
But when you see that we're comparing our circumstances to something, and when we compare what we're going through to the easy times we had in 2019, maybe, then yeah, this looks hard. But you know what? Compared to something else, this is a cakewalk. I'll take this any day. So I'm not here to tell people how to think. I just want you to see that you are thinking.
Yep.
and it has an impact on our emotions. Now, this is important because whatever emotional tone we set for ourselves through judging our life, and you can't turn it off, Jen, you cannot turn off the judging, the evaluation. Notice that you're constantly judging yourself and your circumstances and your family and the pandemic and the government and everything, right? It's not right or wrong. It's how we operate. Welcome to Earth. Notice that you're doing it. And judgment implies some standard that you compare it to. So once you see that, the beauty of this, Jen, is that we get to be in choice. Not about what's happening. What's happening is happening. But we get to choose how we judge it. Because if you compare it to something better, you're going to feel worse about it. If you compare it to something worse, you're going to suddenly feel better about where you are. And then from there, we get to move forward and create what is to be. You know, I'm getting fed up with people saying, well, we can't do this and we can't do that. And how do you feel when you focus on what you can't do? What if we switch that around and we say, how can I celebrate this holiday with my family, for example? And it's going to be different. Well, guess what? Better is always different. Different isn't always better, and that's why people get nervous about change.
Right.
But better is always different by definition. So we get busy, and this is a whole other mode. See, I was talking about judgment and evaluation. The other thing we can't turn off is creation. We have to create something, and next week is coming, whether you want it to or not. So what are you going to create? Well, let's get focused on creating something better. It's going to be different. Let's make that different better. I mean, that sounds so simple, right? Simple and easy aren't the same thing.
No.
Because we get into our habits. And whatever we're trained and taught and educated and programmed to do is going to come pretty naturally to us. So it takes a little bit of work, maybe a little bit of coaching to get yourself onto a different track.
So would you say, though, that we get sort of stuck on how things are supposed to look, or because we have an expectation that it's always been like this? So now that, you know, we're being, I don't want to say forced, because that's not the word I'd like to use, but feeling like we're forced into having to do it different when we may not want to. But it's supposed to be like this, or it's supposed to look like this. Like, how do we help people shift that thinking when, you know, it's like, I don't want it this way?
Yeah, and the good news, Jen, you don't have to want it. I mean, things are what they are.
Yeah.
And that can be so annoying to hear, you know, it is what it is. But honestly, it's all we got.
Right.
It is what it is. And some of what you're used to, now I'm not saying that what you're used to is right or wrong, but some of what you're used to is not currently available. I felt like this sometimes when I voted in the presidential elections. It's kind of like I'm in a Mexican restaurant, but I want to order Chinese food. It's not on the menu.
Right.
And similarly, so you think about some of your holiday traditions, for example. Time honored, we always do this or that, right? And now in the current circumstances, you're hearing, well, you can't do this and you can't do that. All they're saying is this isn't on the menu. So maybe we get to look through the menu and try something we haven't tasted before. You know what? I received a gift from a nonprofit where I sit on the board, and this gift went out to all the board members this year. It was a hot sauce 30-pack. 30 little jars of hot sauce from around the world. It's like, taste the international hot. I've always considered myself a spice wimp. Okay, I break out into a sweat with ranch dressing. And I cough sometimes if I get too spicy. And so I'm thinking, oh, well, I can't. have hot sauce. How well do they know me? Right? And so I tried to do a return on Amazon. Well, you can't return food items. And so then I'm like, well, okay, I guess I got these 30 little jars of hot sauce, and I made a conscious decision. This was so empowering, Jen. I made a conscious decision to enjoy this gift. And I had to face my fears because I've gotten into coughing fits before with a little bit of spice, and I thought, I'm just going to enjoy it. And in the last week, I have tasted and tried and even enjoyed 12
Oh, wow.
of those little hot sauces. I got one in my lunch today. I'm going to try it on a boiled egg.
Nice.
And sometimes I'll cough and sometimes it'll burn, but I've already decided, you know what, I'm just going to enjoy that. I'm going to explore something new. I'm going to try something that I haven't really tried. And not only does this increase your joy, I got to listen to David Eagleman, Dr. David Eagleman from Stanford University is a brain scientist. And he's doing amazing things right now about sensory substitution and some really cool things. But he, during the Q&A in our meeting with Dr. Eagleman, we were asking about Alzheimer's. And he said, the best thing you can do to stave off Alzheimer's or to keep your brain healthy or to help your brain with neuroplasticity and rewiring certain things is to try new things. It's the best thing you can do for your brain health.
And it's not even hard.
And here we are in a circumstance where we kind of have to, because what we're used to isn't even on the menu. Well, good news, folks. This is brain healthy. But only if we don't get trapped in negativity. Negativity and fear are going to take away all the benefits. So we've got to reframe this somehow. And that's my specialty, is working with people on the mindset piece. Mm-hmm. But it's probably good news that we get to change things up a little.
Totally good news.
Yes.
So speaking of changing up, I'm going to change this up just a tiny bit, because before we started, we were talking about the different definitions of weight.
And the different spellings.
And the different spellings, and how, things aren't going to just miraculously change come January 1st, 2021.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Do you remember, and some of your listeners probably aren't even old enough to remember when we shifted over to 2020.
Right.
Or 2000. I'm an old guy. Going back to 2000, there was this Y2K scare. Everybody thought, the computer systems in the world, the calendar, everything's just going to crash at the stroke of midnight when it goes to 2000, the year 2000. Nothing happened. Right. And you're right. Nothing's going to happen when we say Happy New Year to everyone in our household.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and it kind of playing off of what you just introduced there, Jen. As we were corresponding before the show, and you were talking about how a lot of people are going to put on weight during the holidays. They don't have to, right? But that's one of the traditions. You gain weight, right? Spelled WEIGHT. But we also have another weight problem during the holidays. It's like, well, I'll wait till after the holidays to start my health practices, or, to jump in on my positivity. I just sold a package to one of my clients for the Positivity Power Up. It's a 6-week video course on how to be positive no matter what. And she's like, I'll start that right after the holidays. And I'm like, what is all this weight and waiting that we do? We don't have to gain weight on our body, and we don't have to wait for anything to move forward. And if you're waiting for 2021, it's like you pointed out, Jen, it's not going to be significantly different. It's kind of like, if you remember when you turned 18, No magic pixie dust floated down and, suddenly turned you into an adult.
No.
It's a lot like being 17, right? It's the same thing. Same thing we're up against right now. That doesn't mean that we can't have some fantastic experiences. That depends on what we decide to do now. That's going to set the trajectory for what we get to continue as we get into the new year.
Is that something like that you find, like with your practice, is people often, wait until conditions are perfect for something, or wait until this happens and then I can do this, or, when this date comes, or, when my, kids are doing better, then I can do it, whatever the circumstance is. Do you come across that a lot with your
Oh, yeah.
clients in practice?
It's probably one of the most common mental errors that we make as a species. We think, oh, once this is done, or once I accomplish that, or after I have whatever, then I'll be happy. Then I'll be free to whatever. Then I'll start that project. We're constantly kicking the can down the road. We're experts at this. And I think I don't know if it's wired into our brains somehow that, we believe that at some undefined future time, or even if we can put a definition on it, that's when the time will be right. And what's been your experience with that so far? Do things magically change when you reach whatever it was that you thought would bring you there? You know what? We've known forever, as long as we've been doing psychological research on this topic, that happiness and success are statistically correlated. There is a correlation. And we made an error before in interpreting that data, saying, oh, well, therefore, when you're successful, you'll be happy. It's the other way around. We are finding now, and the research bears this out, it's the other way around. When you're happy, you're successful. And honestly, Jen, if you're happy, what else do you want? Right? I mean, you're good. But happiness also is correlated with every other measurable aspect of success that we've ever cared to look at, including finances and relationships and business and whatever we want to put up as a measurement of success. It's more likely achieved when you're happy. But it doesn't cause happiness. It's caused by happiness. And that feels backwards to some people.
Yeah, I can see that. Because if I get this, and if I get to here, and if I just, then I can be happy. Then it's how our brains go, or what I hear.
Well, that's a trap, because once you get there, you find out you're not. And then you think something's wrong with you. And it explodes depression and anxiety and people feeling inadequate and beating themselves up because somehow there's something wrong with them. The thinking is the problem. And when we get our thinking straight, we can experience happiness right now, the way things are, without changing anything. And then magically, I say magically, this is actually principle, and it's based on principles that we can define and we can predict. Magically, we're able to obtain that thing that we thought would make us happy. And it's a bit of a paradox. It's kind of like, I remember when I took my son down to the credit union to get a small loan for an old beater car. He'd turned 21. He's ready for his first set of wheels. Okay. But he didn't have any money. He didn't have any credit or anything. Right. So we go in there and we sit down to get a loan. The loan officer helping him out is entering his information. She gets this dark look on her face as she looks at my son and says, "You don't qualify for this loan." Big surprise, right? I mean, he didn't have any credit rating. So I throw my hat in the ring. How about if I co-sign on that loan? And she's like, yeah, that's awesome. She starts entering my information. She gets an even darker look on her face. And she turns to me and says, "Sir, that makes it worse." No, I wasn't surprised. I had been through a bankruptcy 2 years earlier. I didn't qualify for 5 cents. I knew that was the case. And so I give her another option. I pull $3,000. That was the loan amount we were trying to get. $3,000 out of my jacket pocket, put it on the table, slide it over next to her. How about if I lend you the $3,000, you give my son the loan and let me co-sign on it? She's like, "Oh yeah, we can give you good rates on that." Thank you for the good rates on my own money. Right? But here's what I learned from that. You can get the loan as soon as you prove you don't need the money.
Right.
That's how banks think. But I've found that that is so true. When I'm working with a couple, for example, they want to improve their marriage. The best way to improve a marriage is to realize you don't need to.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a great, wonderful, abundant, rich marriage right now, the way that it is. And this has to do with how people think, because if somebody drags their spouse in here saying, "This marriage sucks," how motivated is that spouse to do some good stuff? As opposed to starting from gratitude and appreciation for the rich, abundant life that you already have. And this is one of the hacks, okay, that I give people when they're feeling consumed and overwhelmed by their circumstances, whether that's a pandemic or a holiday season. Start with gratitude. You look at the rich, abundant life that you have right now, and if you have to, go compare it to a genocide or whatever would be worse. What is it that you already have that you're profoundly grateful for? And what is it from the difficult circumstances? This is a little trick here on gratitude. What is it from those difficult circumstances that I'm grateful for? It switches something in your brain. And it helps you to have more peace and joy right now and puts you in position to go create some really awesome upgrades. You get to improve your situation when you start from a good place. It's almost a paradox, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
But I love paradoxes.
It's hopeful though. Like it's a paradox, but it's hopeful because it's doable.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's simple, maybe not easy, but it's doable. And you can do it right now.
You don't have to wait for anything.
Yeah.
And you don't have to gain weight, however you want to spell that. You don't have to gain weight through any period of your life. And if you lose the weight, W-A-I-T, then you can lose the weight, W-E-I-G-H-T. Yeah, there's paradoxes, but you know what? It does give you hope too, because you've got the power not to change everything that's going on in the world. That's just going to kind of happen. But to change this, to get control of your own mind. And that puts you in a position to do some really powerful things with your circumstances, with your relationships, especially with your mental health.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for doing this and being here today. I think I'm a little mind blown. Like you'd say, sometimes those simple things sometimes have the biggest impact, right? Because those are the pieces we can control and we can do something about, or we get to, we get to change things from right here, right now.
And simple and easy aren't the same thing. So don't get confused by that. This is not easy. It is simple, however, and there are principles that you can apply. And let me say one other thing too, before we sign off here. You brush your teeth every day, right? Hopefully. I mean, you're a health coach, Jen. I mean, do you encourage people to take care of their dental hygiene too? We brush our teeth every day, but what are we doing on a daily basis to take care of our mental hygiene? And this is why I built my membership site, Live on Purpose Central, because we have to have some way. I challenge all of my clients and all the membership there at Live on Purpose Central to spend at least as much time on your mind as you do on your teeth.
Mm.
And your mind is more important than your teeth,
Yeah.
as great as teeth are. What if we were to spend at least as much time on our mind? I spent about an hour and a half going to see my dentist this week. Just a routine cleaning and checkup. That's an hour and a half out of my life that I spent on my teeth. Am I spending at least an hour and a half on my mind this week?
Mm.
You kind of see what I'm saying? But on a daily basis, are you spending 10 minutes on your teeth? Spend 10 minutes on your mind. And there's ways to do that. Daily input. And you mentioned my YouTube channel. We've got these 10 to 15 minute videos that we're putting out. Can you squeeze one of those into your tight schedule? Take care of your mind. Yeah, that would be my challenge, I think, to everybody here. Spend at least as much time on your mind as you do on your teeth. And if you're looking for resources, come see us at Live on Purpose Central. We've got some resources there for you. Or check in with your coach, or read a book, get on a podcast. You're listening to this summit. That's a good start.
Right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And for our listeners, we will make sure we've got Dr. Paul's information and his YouTube channel and everything attached with this, because like you said, I think some of them are as short as 6 minutes and some are more like 12 and 13. But, there's been days since I was introduced to you that I've, even in the car driving somewhere, I'm like, I have 10 minutes. I don't need another Christmas song right now. I need something to fill my mind. I need something to nourish myself in a different way. Christmas music's great. Like, I'm not saying I'm not doing it, but there's been times in the last 2 weeks where it was like, I'm so glad I took that 10 minutes for me, even if it was just in my car.
Right.
Because it shifted how I was feeling and thinking, and my whole day was different.
Right.
I mean, it is true. It's 6 to 10 minutes can totally course correct a full day or more.
It will make a huge difference. Just do it.
So thank you so much. Again, I really, really value and appreciate your time. And for our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll have Dr. Paul's information for you. Please check it out. You've got nothing to lose. And we will see you soon when we drop our next video.